It's a night. I am certain that I'm going to do justice to the program as we delve deep into the tussle that is ongoing within the NASA coalition. Further, dysfunctional or spelling out or tightening the speculations that indeed NASA is dysfunctional right now. This is courtesy of the latest coming from Wiper Party declaring that they are out of NASA because indeed NASA is dysfunctional in what they termed it to be. But this has not been received well by the other members of the coalition. And that is exactly what we'll be delving deep into this evening, getting to hear from the pundits on what their take is on whether indeed this is a divorce or NASA is dead, or whether NASA is still in existence. Expecting Daniel Manzo Makweni, Member of Parliament, who will be representing Wiper Party, Jared Okello Nyando, Member of Parliament, who will be representing ODM, and Sako Bunyasi, Member of Parliament, and Nambale, who will also be representing ANC. And we also have Professor Herman Manyora, who's our resident analyst this evening. But first, we start off with Professor Herman Manyora and Jared Okello. Good evening, gentlemen. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for your time. And the most important...
Professor Manyora, it's been a while.
Oh, yes. Professor, you can hear?
How are you? I can hear, but not very well. But I can.
Group.
Well, gentlemen,
there's echo and stuff like that.
Discussion, and we'll allow us time later on to say hi. And we start off with this key one, and I think I started by saying, the biggest question on ground now is whether NASA is dead, whether it is a divorce, or whether NASA is in existence. From what we hear from Wiper Party leader, it is obvious that NASA is dysfunctional. ODM, in a way, one would argue, is still with NASA or still not with NASA at the same time. The only person who's been solid on the NASA coalition is ANC party leader, that is Musalia Mudavadi, who says they're still held together with the memorandum, which he says until it has been rendered useless or null and void, they still hold together. Gentlemen. I'm not able to...
Oh, who should go first?
Sorry? Or who should go first? Well, let's have you, Mushimiwa Gerard Okello, coming in.
Well, I thank you very much for the opportunity. And as I said, it's nice to see my brother, Professor Manyora.
Yeah.
It's been a while, but I know the COVID has made him vulnerable, so he's hiding behind the curtains. Well, NASA as a coalition, I would want to say, is functionally and technically dead. Technically because there are several requirements for a coalition to be dissolved, and that falls under the purview of the Registrar of Political Parties. If you look at the clauses that did inform the creation of NASA as a coalition, there was a section that dealt with a dissolution, and that therefore meant that if two parties would officially write to the Registrar of Political Parties with the intent to call off the marriage, then that obviously marked the death, or would mark the death of a coalition, or NASA coalition for that matter.
Well, talks have been, Mushimiwa, allow me to come in briefly. Talks have been that ODM has strongly tried to scaffold the unity within NASA. Are you saying this because you are within the ODM party, or it is obvious and evident that indeed there is no more NASA?
The last time NASA summit met was in the year 2017. So 2 years down the line, there hasn't been any meeting. Those are hallmarks of either discord or the death of NASA as a coalition. But I was coming to the second point that would then inform dissolution of the coalition, and that is the expiry of this current parliamentary term. So it was premised on those two fundamentals. Even though there have been attempts by our coalition partners, such as Wiper and CCM, that have penned certain working formulae with Jubilee Nothing so far has been deposited with the Register of Political Parties.
Right.
And that is why I said it is technically and functionally dead. But
All
again,
right.
it is important. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, well, let's allow in Professor to come. And Professor, joining into the discussion, this is what the agreement of NASA is said to, enshrine, that the coalition would only cease to exist should the 3 member parties pull out. I will take an assumption that yes, CCM has pulled out, Wiper Party has pulled out, and in this case, we still not have achieved the 3rd person, or maybe the 3rd number, or the 3 parties that are supposed to exit for it to cease to exist. How then is it possible for the members of ODM to come on board and, and purport that indeed NASA is dead?
You know, there was more than one NASA. There was a NASA. There is too much echo here. I don't know whether you will hear me. Are you hearing me? Can you get me?
It's not quite clear, but let's see. Just keep talking. Let's see whether we're able to
speak, then I hear myself again.
Mm-hmm. Right, just keep talking. I think I'm able to hear you. Yes, Professor,
okay,
just keep talking.
Then I'll bear with it if you can hear me. Mm-hmm. Hoping the viewers will also hear me.
Yes.
It was very uncomfortable. Well, there was a NASA that belongs to the leaders, belonged to the leaders. Then that kind of NASA was a vehicle. Mm-hmm. And immediate after elections, such a NASA was dead. Right. Then there was also NASA, the legal entity, with an argument deposited with the Register of Political Parties, like my friend says. That NASA is still alive, because there's a way in which they will have to fold it. Yeah. That hasn't happened. But there was also NASA, an idea that belonged to the people who supported Raila. That NASA lived on for a while. It is still an idea some people entertain. So, well, you know why ODM would want to walk out yesterday is because of 2022. Mm-hmm. I think there was some mention in that argument that 2022 ODM will not be offering a presidential candidate. Mm-hmm. So you can see why my friend and Sifuna and the rest would quickly want to disband NASA, because it will bite them should Raila want to run. I suspect he will want to run.
But why the bile then, Professor? Why is it that there's so much bile when the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka, carry Wiper Party to join Jubilee Party? And it's almost obvious that maybe NASA, ODM is part and parcel of Jubilee Party, based on, the events of the day.
Is that me?
Yes. If ODM would want out, why is it that there's so much bile when they see Wiper, the likes of Wiper, joining Jubilee Party?
Yes. Well, let me tell you this. Mm-hmm. Ultimately, at the very end, and that end is not very far, all the NASA parties, perhaps with the exception of ANC, will be with Jubilee in some formal arrangement.
All right.
For now, because they have not folded NASA, it cannot be the kind of coalition NASA is. But there will be cooperation with Jubilee. I'm very sure ODM is on the way. But ultimately, like I've said, there's going to be Chama cha Mashinani, there's going to be KANU, there's going to be ODM, there's going to be Wiper, joining Jubilee into some kind of coalition that will then make it very difficult for Ruto come 2022.
All right.
By way of Jubilee having been, made a stranger to him.
Sorry for cutting you short. That's a very interesting observation. And coming back to you, Mheshimiwa Jared, picking up from what Professor says, that, ultimately, that's where all the parties are headed, joining Jubilee. We're talking about President Uhuru Kenyatta. How successfully is he able to oversight the new alliance, first of all, Jubilee, KANU, ODM, Wiper, single-handedly?
Well, at a mundane level, let me make it clear that every political party is formed with a singular objective of capturing power. That is the very basis upon which all political parties are formed and registered by the Register of Political Parties. At the moment, all political parties, each and everyone within NASA coalition, is now independently crafting its own matrix to that power. Yeah. And that is why we have seen people like Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka gravitating towards Jubilee and penning down certain things that have not been brought to the general public for scrutiny. Till now, the Register of Political Parties is yet to receive any document that talks about the kind of arrangement that he has with Jubilee Coalition. President Uhuru Kenyatta, together with the Right Honorable Prime Minister, on the 8th of March 2018, met with one singular objective: to rally the country together, akin to what we did see during the National Accord. National Accord in the Grand Coalition government was created because there was discord. So we needed to bridge that gap. And after the presidential election, twice in a row in the year 2017, it behoved the real statesmen, Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta, to reach out to one another, to unite this country, because we were so stratified that we were again at the brink of another precipice, had they not intervened in good time. And therefore, their intervention then was premised on rallying the country together. If there are other political parties within the NASA outfit or any other coalition arrangement that is now heading towards Uhuru Kenyatta, the sole objective is to galvanize power.
But why is the question that we keep asking? Why is it that Right Honorable Raila Odinga decided to make this move without informing the rest of the other principals? And joining us also is Daniel Manzo, Makueni Member of Parliament, to weigh in on the same now that they are the latest to make that bold move. First of all, Mheshimiwa, I'd want to ask, is it that, the NASA principals are living in denial? The likes, I don't know why I forgot to mention Moses Wetangula. Are the NASA principals living in denial? That it's obvious that this coalition is no more, but they are not coming out to give us that clear picture that indeed we are not working together again as NASA.
That's for me or for my brother Manzo?
That is for Manzo. Daniel Manzo, Mheshimiwa Daniel Manzo, if you can hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, from, how are you? Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Did you get the question?
Well, not really. You could kindly repeat it.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is my question. From the analysts that we have on board, the argument is that it's obvious that NASA is no more. But why is it then that we're not getting a bold step from the principals to declare that indeed there is no more NASA?
Well, you can argue it in two ways. That we do have NASA, because NASA is a combination of four or several political parties. There were many other parties that supported the dream of NASA, but the main parties were 4 or 5 parties. I want to say you can only end the coalition argument of NASA if 3 parties pull out officially, or the parties agree to dissolve, all of them agree to dissolve NASA. So we are living in an era now where the era of handshake, and where the leader of ODM, which is one of the major parties of NASA, is now working with the president for a better Kenya, and also his running mate in the last election, His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, who is also the leader of WIPA and is also working with the making sure that we have a better country in future, and especially when it comes to the BPI and the amendment of the Constitution, so that after elections in future, we not have a problem with the country or during the election. Therefore, if you come to the parliament structure,
right,
from our arrangement, it's clear that in parliament we have NASA as a coalition seated on the left. But when we come out there, each party is independent and can make decisions, and none of the parties stops the other from making a decision which is progressive. So I think nothing really is wrong. There's nothing to worry anyone. After we have shared the seat in parliament, the leadership, I think every party now gets away with what it already has, and there's no controversy at all about that.
Mm-hmm. Well, all right, Mheshimiwa, where did the rain start beating us? Let's loop in Professor on this one. Or where did the rain start beating NASA? And I'll quote the words of Secretary General of ODM, who says that this move made it clear to ODM that we were dealing with very dishonest cowards. We would not be dependent on to put up a fight with them. They alone are responsible for the death of NASA. This is what the Secretary General of ODM said, referring to that time where, there was the swearing in of the people's president and the other principals in a way chickened out. So in this particular scenario, is it a clear indication that Raila was the main person of the coalition and the others were just mere underdogs?
Well, I don't think everybody in NASA and their vote are very crucial as to what presidential candidate Raila Odinga ran got in the election. And I'll tell you that in Makueni, because where I come from, and Makueni and in Ukambani General, Raila was overwhelmingly voted, even probably better voted and supported than his backyard. And that was the result of the people. And so, if a few people in ODM want to rock the boat, you have not heard Raila Odinga himself speak as a party leader. And he is aware that there is an agreement which is signed. He's very much aware of it. I've seen it. He has witnessed it. So I believe at some point it will be revealed. And that's normal in politics. Politics change every day, new events come in. And other than the main leaders, we have a lot of supporters who each one of them have their own ideas. So a lot of times, everyone is allowed to express their mind. Some people think NASA is there.
Mheshimiwa, allow me to loop in Professor Herman Manyora so that we can also get his take on the same. Professor, while we all know that,
I don't think this is either here nor there. The best thing now is to look at the future.
Okay, Professor Herman Manyora, was this a coalition for Raila alone?
The problem with a situation where one man is over-domineering, it will certainly end up like that. NASA was an arrangement where Raila was almost everything. In fact, NASA was ODM and NASA was Raila. The rest were mere flower girls. I remember advising NASA that if they wanted to have a chance at winning the election in 2017, they had to de-ODMize it. They had to run NASA professionally through a secretariat that was independent of ODM and Raila. To the extent that they ignored that and they continued running NASA like ODM and like Raila, the fate that befell them was obvious. It was coming. So yes, Raila was overbearing, ODM was NASA, and naturally the cries of these others were just like babies. They couldn't. And I think even things like the swearing in, it must have been an excuse they needed, seeing as it were that they had not won the elections. And to that extent, they might still want to have a go at the presidency come 2022. So things like the swearing. Also remember that even as they were announcing withdrawing from the repeat elections of 26th of October 2017, I think Raila did it alone. I am sure Mdavadi and Kalonzo watched on TV like the rest of us.
All right, so in this case then, as we get to loop in Honorable Jared
a marriage of that nature really is not a marriage in the sense in which a marriage should be, a place where partners have an equal chance in that relationship.
Okay, so
yes, this was
has
Raila,
ODM,
this was ODM.
Professor, allow me to cut you short briefly and loop in Honorable Jared Ukelo. Do you suppose that ODM has given the rest of the principals all the signs to show that, you know, we are not together? I mean, taking us back to the revenue share, remember there was a tussle on the same as the NASA principals. The rest of the NASA principals complained that ODM wanted to take the entire share, actually not even the lion's share. And that's exactly what played out. So have they been given all the signs that there's no NASA, yet they still live in denial?
Well, I thank you. Firstly, it is only the register of political parties that can unequivocally pronounce NASA dead, akin to what happens in an hospital. If you have a patient and you are taking care of your patient amidst the work done by doctors and nurses, and you think your patient is dead, I mean, you have no obligation whatsoever until the doctor does so. So NASA can still be breathing until such a time that the regional political parties will pronounce it dead. Two ills pervaded NASA at its original stage after the election. Mm-hmm. You remember when we were moving across the country, preparing the nation for the swearing-in ceremony of the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. To quote the words of Honorable Musalia Mudavadi in our last rally in Homa Bay, he said that the truck heading towards the swearing-in has not just lost brakes, but does not also have reverse gear. And therefore, it was all systems go. That is why we wonder what changed between the Sunday that we were in Homa Bay and Tuesday when the swearing-in ceremony was conducted. That was the original sin, and it was not a small sin as such. Secondly, and this is most important, every member of a political party elected on a party's ticket is obligated to donate 20,000 shillings every month towards supporting party's activities. The arrangement that those within NASA coalition did craft was that each and every individual having chucked out 20,000 shillings to their own respective political parties, 10,000 shillings was to go to the NASA headquarters to run the affairs of NASA coalition. Not a single party except ODM did this, and therefore we supported NASA activities until such a time that it was crystal clear that these guys were not with us. So if there is anyone to be blamed...
alive to that fact, yeah? Right Honorable Raila Odinga, after the handshake, in public domain, assured the rest of the principals that it's okay. Well, in as much as he was cognizant to the fact that, well, he was alone in this game, he said, you know what, Baba ametoka, ameenda kutafuta chakula, so the rest should not worry. Why give them such an assurance, knowing very well that deep down, you know that there is nothing, I mean, you're on this alone? Briefly.
Yeah, you remember when Baba met President Uhuru Kenyatta, the following day, it did not take long, the following day he rallied behind his soldiers. And I mean Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, Honorable Moses Wetangula, the CCM leader then, Isaac Ruto, together with Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, and went in for a meeting with them in Kitengela for a whole day, appraising them on exactly what transpired during the meeting, and to assure them that, yes, we have a working formula with President Uhuru Kenyatta, but that does not, signify the death of NASA as a coalition. He had to do this in order to reassure them, because again, the travesty that we may have faced as a nation is to go back to a single party dictatorship, and Kenyans are not ready to go back there. And that is why, yes, we have a handshake with Uhuru Kenyatta. We want to push the development agenda alongside him. And at the same time, we want to midwife a new constitutional dispensation through BBI. But we have kept ODM, we have kept NASA in book quite intact, so that we do not relegate back to the single party dictatorship that, every Kenyan will remember with great nostalgia. We are not ready to go back there. So I think Baba Raila Odinga has portrayed utmost faith in his transaction with his coalition partners. but they have consistently dragged aside and drifted the ship that ought to move together as one unitary society to rally Kenyans behind the benefits accruing from the Jubilee government.
I suppose that's the interest also of the other key principles of NASA coalition, based on what Wiper Party leader says, that he is joining Jubilee Party to front the aspect of unity that is being brought on board by President Uhuru Kenyatta. But one thing I'd want to know from you, Honorable Daniel Manzo, do you feel like, you have been shortchanged by ODM as it stands today on matters NASA coalition, based on also what, of course, your party leader was saying the other day in terms of the agreement that they had, secret agreement, with ODM party? Are we able to get Honorable Daniel Manzo?
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Does Wiper in any way feel shortchanged by ODM?
Hello, sorry, I can't hear you well.
This is my question. Does Wiper in any way feel shortchanged? Well, based on what we have seen, the latest utterances by your party leader.
Well, I want to say that the party leader is quite clear in his mind what he said. And I think this matter will soon be sorted out. And first and foremost, at the leadership level. If you are to remove Wiper from NASA and remove the rest of the parties and leave ODM on its own, then you take ODM back to 1997. The sort of numbers they had. So each contribution of each party is very important to the unity of the coalition. And in fact, at one point, there was a proposal that we make one big party, the way Jubilee did, and you can see the results of what happened when Jubilee was formed, and then later on there's a difference. If you look at the constitution of Jubilee, you realize that the party leader has all the mandates in the operations of the party, and the deputy is simply an assistant or has no other mandates as such. And therefore, that's a threat we are going to fall as NASA if we had formed one big political party. So as much as the Secretary General of ODM will want to make remarks which would be annoying or disparaging to other partners, there is no way ODM on its own can succeed in politics on its own. And similarly, what if all this is happening changes, because anything is possible in politics? So don't be surprised to find Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka working together, or Kalonzo Musyoka be supported by Raila Odinga and the team.
Well, at least
there be no deal with Jubilee. Anything is possible in politics. So what I would tell to our brothers in ODM is to relax. We have a lot of time before 2022, and I'm sure a lot is on the way.
Well, take a chill pill is what Honorable Manzo says to the rest of the ODM members, the likes of, Sifuna, who's the Secretary General, looping you in, Professor Herman Manyora. And I'll just speak, this phrases by, that is Ford Kenya leader, Moses Wetangula, at some point saying that it's going to be noisy and messy. And he says NASA is a moribund organization that cannot be salvaged. It is history. I have suffered the pain of betrayal by NASA presidential candidates, he noted. He claimed that he had been betrayed by NASA leader Raila Odinga, adding that the move had killed the opposition coalition. As it stands today, he probably has smelt the coffee. But why is it that, being the orchestrator, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi still holds on to this?
Really, people like Wetangula must also appreciate the fact that a significant portion of their relevance is by association with Raila Odinga. The other fact they must also appreciate and accept is that there were actually small players in NASA, almost lucky to be where they were as principals. So naturally, when things happen to people like those, they will want to show otherwise. They will want to show they were bigger than they actually were. So I would understand when Wetangula is throwing tantrums. I understand why he's feeling the way he's feeling. Mudavadi is a little more guarded, a little much more mature than Moses Wetangula, but still the same. They are still bitter people. They are not happy. They have lots of complaints to make, including the sharing of political parties' funds. They feel they are being shortchanged by ODM and so on and so forth. But I want to agree with Dan Manzo that there is time. The pieces will fall together. In the next 2 years and within the context of what's going on, within the political matrix of this country between now and 2022, a lot is going to happen. And I can see these people coming back together. Because you know what? Alone they are irrelevant. Where would Kalonzo Musyoka be without the rest? Where would Musalia Mudavadi be without the rest? Where would Wetangula be without Raila and the rest of these people? Because even Mudavadi right now is in a kind of dilemma. Should he even work with Ruto? Can he be second? Can he play second fiddle to Ruto? How will people take it if he says, I want to deputize Ruto? Because you know the Constitution bars Ruto from being deputy president again. So it means if they are going to work together, unless the Constitution is changed significantly, then he will have to be Ruto's deputy. So what I'm trying to say is, these fellows are tied together with NASA, and there's nothing they can do. They will rotate, they'll move up and down, but like Manzo says, at some point, whether Raila likes it or not, he will need Kalonzo. He will need Mudavadi, he will need Wetangula. So
but before we get to 2022,
but for
Professor,
now, these are the kicks.
Professor, before we get to 2022 politics, allow me to come in there. Before we get to 2022 politics, smaller
than the main player.
All right. Professor, before we loop in Honorable Jared Okello, and before we also get to 2022 politics, there's still a scramble for the House positions and House committee, positions as it stands right now. Of course, the biggest bone of contention today is that one that is being directed to Wiper Party. They say that you should relinquish or, the committee positions, minority committee positions for that matter. In this case, before we even cross over to 2022, how do we get to strike the balance for this? Because there's obviously a scramble for the same.
Well, I thank you once again. I want us to be in one page that there is no bigger betrayal than to leave your colleague, step into Uhuru Park and be sworn in alone.
Oh, yeah?
These are people who love their skins so much that they thought that Uhuru Kenyatta was going to unleash terror on the attendees of the swearing-in ceremony. And let me ask you, assuming something then happened as they envisaged, so are they then going to be safer in their homes to the detriment of Baba's death or Baba's, bodily harm? These are fundamental questions that we need to ask, and therefore,
but Mheshimiwa, and I would love the rest of the gentlemen to come in on this. We all understand the game of politics, and I would want to believe that Reinhold Raila Odinga is cognizant to this. At some point, there are people who've argued that he has literally betrayed them. Why is it that ODM still holds this particular scenario of the swearing in of the people's president so dear, and they still bank on that, and they still go back to point fingers at the rest of the principles based on this?
If there is any better test at the climax of our agitation to galvanize power, that was the day of the swearing in ceremony. And therefore, that is why we think as ODM, there is no lesser or bigger sin than failing to turn up in Uhuru Park. I want to mention something small before
let's allow the gentleman, first of all, to react on the same. Let's allow the rest of the gentlemen to react on the same, because I still do not understand why.
Can I come in?
Yes. Yes, Professor.
Can I come in?
Yes, Professor Herman Manyora.
You must also tell my friend that before the swearing in, a month or so leading to the swearing, there's a lot of talk. There's actual serious talk on whether or not they should go on with the swearing in. We have heard stuff from Miguna, from David Ndei. They are talking about the discussions in Miguna's home and other places. So there was talk about whether or not that swearing should go on or not. Secondly, there was a lot of pressure from outside. So we are not privy to what really happened. Could it be these others kind of had come to the conclusion that they were not going to have this swearing in like they have kind of claimed?
Yeah.
Of course, there are unbelievable things around there. But the issue of whether or not it was conclusive that they should actually go in for the swearing in. Secondly, is it also not possible that there were tricks from the other side? Now, with hindsight, that barely 2 months or thereabouts, Raila was able to go into this handshake alone with Uhuru Kenyatta. Could Raila have known something the rest didn't know? Yeah. Could he perhaps have talked to Uhuru, and talked with Uhuru rather, and known that, well, you go on, do the mock swearing in, after a month or so, we will have our own handshake. People have said all manner of things that I personally also doubt that the discussion between Uhuru and Kenyatta, including that between them and their emissaries before they finally met, I doubt it took place just in March or February, not even January. These talks could have started as early as November of the previous year. And therefore, if they were in talks secretly, perhaps Raila knew things that these others didn't know. So I'm not defending them. But I'm only trying to say I can justify their cowardice if we go by Sifuna's words. You could justify. Yeah. Perhaps they didn't know. They believed there was danger. I also thought there would be danger in Uhuru Park. I also didn't know there would be a crowd. Right. You know, what I'm saying is, let's also not over-crucify the NASA core principles. I think there was an element, a justified feeling of danger on the part of Musalia Mudavadi and the rest of those people. I could see them in some studios, some TV station. Cameras were rolling around them. They looked quite beaten. But how if Raila's courage didn't come from him being a courageous man? How if that courage came from him knowing nothing would happen, having been assured by Uhuru Kenyatta? Those kind of things could be put on the table in future.
And true to it, we saw that he was the only one who was safe amid all these talks of, the mock swearing in. To quell these issues that are cropping up in regards to the coalition, the NASA coalition, what would be the constitutional, what would be the noble route, what would be the legal route to take so that maybe we officially disband NASA? Or what would be the next move towards ensuring that NASA again works together, whether under the umbrella NASA or in different umbrellas? Maybe Dan Manzo, you should come first. Now that you're the one who said that these people should take a chill pill, there are likelihoods that you're going to work together anyway.
Yes. I think I want to say that, from the swearing in to all the events which have happened, other than the handshake and whatever was agreed, we are yet to see the BBI and finally the people of Kenya will decide, because the issues raised in the BBI mostly will go into a referendum. And therefore, the final say is with Kenyans. But what I want to find good is the wisdom of the two leaders to keep the country peaceful, other than what was happening just before the swearing in. And you could see the turn of events. We were expecting that day to be very nasty. But by 10 o'clock, the security systems were behaving differently. So I want to agree with the professor. There must have been something already, some discussion between the two leaders. And probably the government allowed the swearing in to go so that we can do away with the politics. It was very political. And that's why I'm insisting the best thing is to look at the future and to look at the goodness of the country and a prosperous country. And serious sacrifices will have to be made. What I want ODM to know is that on its own, it cannot go anywhere. And probably the deal with President Uhuru may not work. There is no guarantee.
The future is blurry. When you say working together, Mheshimiwa, the future is blurry.
Then they give it in. And therefore, there is so much which is going to happen as the politicking goes on. And now with the challenges of COVID, And there being now a new system of doing things, a new norm in the world. We are yet to see a lot, and I believe the Honorable Raila Odinga, the party leader of ODM, is a reasonable man, and he's tired of being pushed by some of people in his team. Some just push him for their own benefit. And I believe he wants to make the
let's loop in
for the country. I will not be surprised if Raila Odinga supports somebody else.
The future, though, is blurry. The future is blurry. Why I'm saying this?
Country. What do they do if he just wakes up and says, this is the way?
But just who is going to say this is the way? Because all the principals, Honorable Jared Okello, say that they're not going to play second fiddle, say that they all have interest on the main seat. Well, if at all we're not going to go for a referendum, I mean, who is going to play second fiddle? How then do we just say that NASA is over and done, and let's proceed with our
for that to be a referendum, there must be a lot of concessions from all the parties.
Honorable Jared.
Because as I've told you earlier, even now with the scenario in Jubilee, one wing of Jubilee, the Tangatanga wing, likely to oppose the referendum, and President Uhuru Kenyatta and his team likely to support the referendum, together with ODM, and I believe everyone now is for the referendum. But they have to agree on the document which is going to the referendum.
All right, okay. Honorable Jared Okello. Honorable Jared Okello. All right, moving forward, I know I cut you short the other time, yeah? Honorable Manzo, allow us to loop in the other gentleman. Honorable Jared Okello, in this particular scenario, then at what point then we say that NOSA is over and done? Let's think forward. Let's think on what other move as we wind up.
Well, my sister, 2 years is a very long time in politics. In fact, they say 1 day is a very, very long time. We have to give it to our principles that this country is now enjoying a semblance of peace that is quite foreign in such a divided election, such as the one that we had the last time. 2 elections in a row, characterized with grandstanding from both angles. Indeed, to have this degree of peace at this particular point in time is a miracle. And the same miracle will be seen going into the year 2022. Twice, Raila Odinga has had Kalonzo Musyoka as his deputy in an electoral contest. Anything can happen. He can still have him a third time. He can reach out to other coalition partners or other political parties in a coalition. So a lot is still going to happen between now and 2022. But I think the main focus now is how does BBI present a bigger cake so that at the end of the day, everybody becomes a winner. The mere fact that I have lost an electoral contest does not confine me to oblivion. We need to figure out how every Kenyan is encompassed, is brought on board to share on this national cake. And one of the reasons why we are in full support of what we call the 4-point agenda of President Uhuru Kenyatta is that it puts emphasis on the livelihoods of the Kenyan people. It takes a tangent of creating job opportunities, not just to the Politburo, to those in the political scene, but to every Kenyan, Wanjiku, Atieno, Nekesa, everybody in this country, so that at the end of the day, Kenyans can talk about their own dignity and the dignity that is confined within our constitutional standing. Our constitution talks a lot about the Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights about enjoying the benefits accruing in a nation. So what we need to do now is to focus on just what will happen beyond 2022. How do we bring everybody on board? Because 2022 will come and go. An election, even though a process, is a one-day event. What then happens after the August of the year 2022? And that is the biggest headache that both principals are tackling at the moment.
All right. Professor Herman Manyora, what do you make of all this conversation and, the fact that amid all this talk of 2022, of the future, NASA is still there? So unless it is disbanded, there's probability that these key principles will still hold each other at ransom.
I've said before, and let me repeat this. The politics of this country between now and 2022 will bring all the major players together to face William Samoei Ruto, man solo. What Uhuru and Raila have managed to do so far is to isolate Ruto so that he may have the ground like he says. But as far as leadership, regional leaderships, the people we call Vigogo, the kingpins from the regions in this country, have all been put in a state where they cannot survive outside the handshake.
Right.
So even as Mudavadi continued to dance outside the hut, where young men used to dance over weekends, some would be locked out and would be dancing from outside on the eaves. Even as he continues to play from outside, he will finally inevitably find himself in. Otherwise, he will be completely rendered irrelevant. So what am I saying? I'm saying whether Raila likes it or not, and it has nothing to do with what Wetangula or Kalonzo Musyoka likes or doesn't like. They are together in this thing. They will be together in this thing because the way the politics has shaped out, if you look at the trajectory, you are either within the handshake or you are with William Ruto. And they have made it so difficult for anybody among the big players in this country to be with William Ruto. From all the regions, you can count. And therefore, it's not even a question of whether they like it or not. They will be together somehow. They are lucky Uhuru is not within their coalition.
Yeah.
And therefore, he will be like the father figure. He will bring them together so that whether they like Raila or not, they will be inside, perhaps for the simple reason that it is Uhuru who is the captain of the entire handshake and BBI team. But they will be together.
Yeah.
They cannot avoid each other. And anybody who tries, like Mudavadi is trying to pretend he can be alone, he can play outside the handshake, he will be rendered irrelevant. And I'm sure no politician ever wants to be rendered irrelevant.
To be out in the cold?
No politician ever wants to be in the cold. And for that simple reason of the greed and the self-centeredness of politicians, Mudavadi, Wetangula, Kalonzo Musyoka, Isaac Ruto, Raila Odinga, they of the original NASA will of a sense remain together with Uhuru Kenyatta unless something different happens, something monumental. But if politics go on the way I can see, looking at the trajectory, they will definitely be together.
And the biggest question, gentlemen, then would be, as they dance into the circle, where will Wanjiku be? Where will the common Mwananchi be left? As they would rightfully put it, maybe, just maybe, BBI would be a vehicle towards ensuring that all the leaders or the key leaders are able to find a space or get their place on the high table. That is subject to what will be taking center stage in the near future. We'll be following up on the same and equally taking a look at what will be the fate of BBI upon tomorrow's address by Senate on the revenue stalemate that is still ongoing. Gentlemen, thank you so much for weighing in extensively on the NASA possible divorce, whether it's there or not, but indeed a question of wait and see. Honorable Daniel Manzo, Member of Parliament Makueni, Honorable Gerard Ukelu, Member of Parliament Nyando, and Professor Herman Manyora, who's our resident analyst. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for the great insights. Looking forward to see you again some other time. Yeah, that's where we get to wind up the Pundits night, but we're leaving you with the weather updates right here on TV47. Ensure that you keep it right here. Do have yourself a lovely, lovely night. My name is Linda Alela. See you.